Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Ari Hirschberg, Community Practice Lead at the Exchange Lab. Thanks for joining us for our second episode. For the next 5 episodes, we are going to take you on a journey of an Agile team. This month, I am talking with Spencer Tickner on how Agile can work in government. He is currently the Executive Director and Chief Technology Officer at the Ministry of Education. We met a few years ago to discuss his team's work at Queen's Printer, and again when he spoke on Agile and government at University, a yearly event hosted by the Ministry of Citizen Services to educate public servants. Both times it was impressive to hear Spencer explain Agile methodologies in a way that made sense for government. I think he has a wonderful way of explaining what is now a common word in government that is logical and easy to grasp. Thanks for joining us for the second episode, Spencer.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here, Ari.
Excellent. Really happy to have you here. So let's begin. What led you to this way of working?
So traditionally, we've done a lot of the quote unquote waterfall projects, and it just really wasn't a nice space for us to be in. We were constantly getting kind of requirements wrong. We were going over time, over budget, ended up with projects kind of clashing with each other. And generally, our clients weren't unhappy with our services, but they weren't super happy either. And it was one of those things where I kept thinking that we were going to get it right the next time around, right? With one more project, I get through it, and then I would have the answers to break this thing out, and it really wasn't working. And I got really interested in that time about what the best companies in the world were doing, because I was having a hard time imagining big innovative companies working in the same way I was working. So I took a deep dive on that and realized that none of the big real leaders in innovation were working in this way. They'd all adopted something called Agile. And so I went down that hole for a bit and did a bunch of reading and tried to figure out what it was and how it worked. Not going to lie, pretty skeptical at first. I'd done, a lot of PM courses. I was PM for a while. This idea about, quote unquote, throwing out that body of knowledge, even though you don't throw it out all of it for sure, didn't really hold water for me. But then we tried it. We gave it a shot, and it was just so successful. The kind of methodology that drove the Agile process worked so well, and for everybody involved, for our clients, for the teams that I was running. And we started with just a small group, a kind of innovative group within the Queen's Printer ecosystem to see if it would work. And when we had such great successes, we were able to kind of iterate on the successes they were having and kind of slowly bring it out to the entire organization. And when I left the Queen's Printer, every department was using Agile fundamentals to do the work that they do. And, I had one particularly good developer come to me and said, if you ever went back to doing it the old way, I'd leave. I couldn't work back the way we used to work before. So, it was really positive for us. Yeah.
Okay, that's great to hear. I like what you said, a leap of faith. I think it's like that for a lot of us when we go into this, because there's a lot of stuff that makes sense, but then there's things that's like, is that really going to work?
Yeah. And I think there's a bit of hubris about it. At least there was in my case, right? That idea that I was going to figure it out at some point, that I could figure out a big, complex IT project in some cases, other cases non-IT projects. But if I just planned enough and I just wrote down enough, I would get to the point where I could understand what would make these clients that I'm providing, or customers that I'm providing services to, their lives better. And one of the main things I found with the Agile approach is really that switch from hubris to empathy. You're constantly working with the people who you're building services for, and like really working as in they're really becoming part of the team. They're becoming beyond stakeholders. They're feeling like that, we're feeling like that, and you have empathy for the problems that they have on a day-to-day basis that they're running up against. And that just will inevitably make your systems and services and products that you're making for them better when they're involved in the process.
Can you take me through the basics of the process in 5 minutes or less?
So it relies on some very simple principles, but those principles I think are very important. Kind of what I talked about before is that you need to get your team in front of the people that are building services or products for. So you start with a product, and a product is what you are creating, updating, building, and that product can be divided into a bunch of tasks that make it up. And you have a product owner, and that product owner is responsible for what we call the product backlog. So all the things at this point in time that they think can go into the creation of this product or service. And they're constantly talking with the people that they're making these product or services for to add more things to that product backlog. Then, based on what they see as a priority, they prioritize that backlog. So what you end up with is a bunch of tasks in a row. In Agile, we call those user stories that are prioritized by the product owner. You then have a very unhierarchical team, Scrum Master, who is involved in implementing Scrum for the team, and then a team of people that will be building out this product or service. And at the start of what we call a sprint, which is an iteration, they grab the top bit off of that product backlog that they think they can get done in the sprint length. So usually that's about 2 to 3 weeks. So they pull that off, and now they own it. Now that is part of the team, so it's no longer part of the product owner. And the product owner can go back off and go and talk to the users to gather more stories and more improvements for the product that they own. Meanwhile, the team reprioritizes the sprint backlog. They might tear it apart. They might estimate differently in terms of effort, and then they go to work. And in 2 to 3 weeks, they try to complete all the work that is on their sprint. At the end of that 2 or 3 week period, a big part of it is bringing the people into the room that they're building these product or services for and showing something off. And this is such an important part of the process, because what inevitably happens is the team gets to know the people that they're building this service or product for. The people that this service or product for are getting built for gets to know the team very well. And what you have is this great discussion. Here's what we did. Did we do it right? Do you have feedback? Can we do it better next time? Are there things that we should add to the product backlog? And that conversation really drives the value of what comes out of the Agile process. So you just this continuous iteration of improvement and engagement with the people that you're building products and services for. Hopefully that kind of covered off the mechanics of it.
That's a well-explained description of the mechanics. One thing I had a question on, and that is, could you describe what you mean by unhierarchical?
So, yeah, I found that our teams work the best, and in classic Agile, this is the case, where it's not so much that you have this kind of classic hierarchical org chart on a Agile team. Your product owner owns the product, and they're responsible for making decisions on the product, but that's not to say that they get to go in and tell the team how to complete the work. The team knows best, better than anyone, how to do the work that they have to do, how long it's going to take the work that they have to do, so the estimation, and how to improve the team's performance from one sprint to the next. So although you have a product owner, a team, and a Scrum Master, they really, in a good Agile team, all sit on the same level, you would say, in an organizational hierarchy. So there's no reporting relationship from one to the other.
What does people first mean to you?
You know, I would just say that, I mean, what are we trying to do in this enterprise? In the end, everything that we're doing is really trying to make people's lives better. Anything, policy, legislation, IT builds, building a toboggan. In the end, we're trying to, in some ways, increase people's well-being. And so to put people first and to remember that we are not here to build documents. We're not here to build project plans and charts. What those things are supposed to be doing is to help add value to the people that we're trying to build something for. And I think that sometimes that gets lost in the waterfall methodology. It's something that the Agile methodology really puts front and center. You know the people that you're building this stuff for, you interact with them all the time, and you see that the value that you're adding to their lives.
What are your thoughts on engagement?
I mean, engagement really is everything. In order to have a meaningful work experience, I can't see any way of doing it without feeling engaged in the process. And this is something that really comes out through the Agile process. I talk a lot about this idea of being close to the people that you're adding value to. When you are seeing the value that you are adding to an ecosystem, it's really hard not to get excited about that. It's really hard not to be engaged in that process. It's really hard to disassociate yourself with that and say, this isn't a worthwhile endeavor, right? I mean, engagement's the key here. And I think by seeing that value proposition with your clients, it's impossible not to be engaged.
And you obviously have noticed that with your team culture then, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it goes both ways too. Not only have I seen teams become much more engaged in their work, much more engaged with their clients, but because you're checking in with your clients all the time, you're always asking them questions. You're always saying, did I get it right? Could it be better? Those clients, those customers that you're developing value for, start to feel like they're engaged in the team as well. Often, if you'll come into a sprint meeting with an engaged team and their client, it's hard to tell where the dividing line is between the team and the client. So not only is the team engaged, but our clients and customers are engaged as well.
It makes me think of this, one of my favorite videos of Simon Sinek. It's Simon Sinek. He's videoing this outdoor dance party concert, and this one lone nuts dancing, and he creates this really nice vibe, and people all feel invested. And even though it's just off the wall, everyone starts dancing because they feel connected.
I'm just that nut that's just dancing where nobody else is engaged.
What does check in regularly mean to you?
Check in regularly means that, to me, it means that you have to be, again, working for that place of empathy. The idea that you need to check in constantly with the people that you are building value for, testing your assumptions and testing your hubris about what you think is the best way forward. You know, one of the things that I think really hurt my time in the world of waterfall was that when things start going a little bit sideways, the first thing that you do is stop checking in. And so the classic case of being over time, over budget, you're trying to work off in the corner and just trying to get it done as fast as possible, and you don't want to tell anybody about it because everything's going wrong. And then you present something that completely misses the mark, right? I think that by checking in that iterative step over and over and over and over and over and over again, that red thread is never lost. It's never lost between you. It's never lost with the client. The value continues to grow.
Can you speak examples in the public and private sector where you have seen Agile iteration work well?
Really interesting. I found it really interesting. When we started looking at Agile, as I said, I went out and I did a bunch of research, and it wasn't surprising to me that innovative companies were using a different methodology than the one I was using at the time, waterfall. What was surprising to me was everybody was using some form of iterative continuous improvement. Now, not all of them called them agile, but if you look behind the scenes, it was engagement with clients, it was iterating, it was continuously improvement, it was not creating something and throwing it over to operations to look after. It was keep making it better. It was just like right across. Everybody was doing the same thing, and I had never seen it before, and I couldn't believe it. So that was really interesting. I was looking at tech companies at the time too, who are usually up at the forefront. But what I've seen since then, I've seen in the BC government, just time and time again, the BC Dev Exchange Lab, our crew, I'm in education now, and they're implementing these processes as well. It goes well every time. It's just working for everybody. And I always remember the adage when I started doing this, like any change, you always have some detractors. And it was, might work for an IT project, but you couldn't build an airplane with it, right? But, now we've seen SpaceX build rockets with it, right? SpaceX just recently put 2 astronauts on the International Space Station. And how did they do it? They built rockets really quickly. They checked in constantly. They failed very, very quickly. They blew up a bunch of them and iterated on it to make it better and better and better. And the pace that they were able to get from Elon Musk kind of launching home-built rockets in his backyard to delivering American astronauts to the International Space Station is just a testament to what you can do with this kind of methodology. It really blows my mind.
Me too. I would have never been able to predict a time or think of a time that it wouldn't be NASA putting up a spaceship. It's unheard of.
In fact, I was thinking about this yesterday. What's the name of the ship that it lands on there? So Long I Love You or something like that? It's a drone ship that the rocket comes down and lands on. And I thought, that's kind of like a sprint meeting, right? That ship, the first rocket came down and just exploded on it and said, well, you didn't quite get it right that time. And the next time it hit it and fell over. Well, you didn't get it quite right next time. And slowly but surely, finally they landed one rocket and they got better and better and better at landing rockets. And now it almost seems operational, which is wild, crazy. It's amazing. It's quite the feat.
What do you consider challenging behaviors in Agile?
Challenging behaviors in Agile. Well, it gets back to even my journey into this space is that reluctance to really take it on, to take on the processes, the concepts, to throw out the old concepts. I mean, it's really quite a change management problem. We've been doing projects the same way for quite some time. And even though it hasn't been working particularly well, it's really hard to change your mindset away from that. So I've certainly seen a bunch of project teams that weren't perhaps ready to make the plunge, and they go about using the words. So, they're an Agile team and they're getting started on their Agile project, and they have their Agile project plan and they have their Agile project charter. And on the wall, they have their Agile Gantt chart, and then they start their first sprint, and the sprint lasts 6 months, and they haven't really done anything other than used the terminology from Agile and overlaid it on a waterfall project. And that is a recipe for failure. What ends up happening is you take a waterfall process that may have showed some results and then laid another process on top of that. So you have a disjointed project team that doesn't understand why now they have to go to daily Scrum meetings as well as all the other project meetings that they were going to beforehand. And plus every, like I said, 6 months, we're going to try to throw a sprint meeting on this. and show off some stuff that you've been working on for 6 months and call that a sprint meeting. And that layering of methodologies on top of each other just produces an obscene amount of work and is bound to fail. And I've seen it before, and I've seen that process fail. And it's too bad, because what people come away from it saying is that, Agile was that buzzword of the day. It doesn't work. No, it works. You just really have to make the commitment to really put it into practice as it was meant to be in practice.
What was a particular highlight that you were proud of?
My highlight always comes from my teams. I mean, really, they were the ones that showed me the way most of the time. And I know I'd already mentioned about that one programmer that said he would leave if we ever went back to the old way of doing things. But those are the conversations I had over and over again with the people that were on these teams. They were so much more, as you talked, we alluded to earlier, engaged in the process, excited to come to work. I had just a wonderful Scrum Master at the Clean Sprinter who, hadn't been a project manager before, got into this role and just really took to it. And, seeing her really flourish in her career, seeing the teams flourish, watching our clients come in and be excited at a sprint meeting to see what we've come up with in the last sprint. I hate to keep repeating myself, but it goes back to value creation. And when you see value being created, it's infectious. And it's infectious for the team, it's infectious for your clients, and it just makes working so wonderful. So I would say, I know it's not much of a one highlight, but the highlight is certainly the way that it feels going to work. Yeah, let's put it there.
Fair.
Yeah.
It's nice to want to go to work. What do you think the risks of building modern systems in this way?
I think there's some inherent risk in building systems this way, but I would say it's because the architecture around our jobs currently is set up for a waterfall project methodology. And if you think of our capital funding process, if you think about our procurements process, that we have to go to market with a finished idea and project plan of what this is going to look like. We have to go to ask for capital money. We have to have a lot of the kind of archetypal documents that come from a waterfall methodology. And Agile is inherently not like that. So you run up against organizational barriers, organizational understanding, governance structures that used to make sense that need to evolve. So in my experience, that's been the biggest risk and possibly the biggest hump to get over, is seeing how you can implement some of these ideas in a situation that often doesn't understand them and will flat out reject them.
I'm out of questions. Any other thoughts you wanted to share?
I think really what we're looking at is we live in a new marketplace, and it's something that we don't talk about enough, because we work in government. We're not used to thinking about ourselves as being in the ecosystem of a marketplace, but we really are. And if we look around us, the way that services are delivered to us now is at such a rapid rate and pace. And for some reason, I think for a long time, government was kind of immune to it. There was a thought that both internally and externally, that government was a different type of entity, that it could just move slower, or it had to move slower. And I think with a lot of the new generations coming up that have grown up in the soup of the internet and their expectations about how they interact with their healthcare system, education, law enforcement, all of the services that government provides are changing. And they're asking, I wouldn't say more of us, I think they're asking a reasonable amount from us. And up until this point, I don't know if we've been able to deliver on that reasonable expectation. Luckily, in the last 3 to 4 years, I've seen just a seismic shift in the government. I think we're getting to the point now where we're really seeing what government can do. And, I have lots of colleagues across the country and in other jurisdictions, and I really think that BC is leading the way on this. I'm really proud to be a part of it, and I would just really encourage everybody to learn more, try it out. I mean, part of being agile is looking at these minimal viable products or putting in proof of concepts to try them out. That's how I did it. That's how I got buy-in. That's how I got understanding of how this worked. So try it. Try it with a small team. Try it with a small product, little service that you've been thinking about implementing. Give it a shot, because very soon, I believe the market is going to demand it of us.
Thank you for the closing comments. And again, thank you for being the second part of 6-part journey of like what it takes to put together a team and all the different processes. We'll be going further in the podcast, but these are our first 6 to start. So the next episode in July, and they come out every month, newsletter, Learning About Change with Jake Morris. If you have any questions, you can always email me at ari.hirschberg, HERSHBERG @gov.bc.ca. I'd love to hear your feedback, comments, and suggestions. Thanks for listening.